I have seen a lot in my 43 years on the bench. I have watched people lie, cry, and try every trick in the book to get out of paying a simple parking ticket. But what walked into my courtroom on the morning of October 17th, 2023 at exactly 9:47 a.m. changed everything I thought I knew about justice, sacrifice, and the secrets people carry. Are you ready to see what happens when a judge gets completely destroyed by the truth? Then you better hit that subscribe button right now because this story is going to take you on a ride you will never forget. Seriously, click it. You're going to want to follow this channel after you hear what happens next. The case file in front of me seems simple enough. Case number 2023 CV8842, a parking violation dispute. The defendant was an 84-year-old man named Robert Mitchell. The citation was written by Officer Dennis, badge number 4729, outside the Providence Veterans Affairs Medical Center on August 3, 2023 at 2:15 p.m. Mr. Mitchell had parked in a loading zone for 47 minutes. The fine was $75 plus court costs. Standard stuff. I figured this would take maybe 10 minutes and we would all move on with our day. But then Mr. Mitchell walked into my courtroom, and something about him made me pause. He moved slowly, using a wooden cane that looked like it had seen better days. His suit was clean but old. I mean really old. The kind of brown suit that probably looked sharp in 1985, but now hung loose on his thin frame. His tie was tied perfectly, though, with that kind of precision you only see in military men. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine, despite the cracks in the leather. This man had dignity. You could see it in the way he held himself, even with that cane, even at 84 years old. He stood before my bench, and I noticed his hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, from age, from time, from whatever weight he had been carrying around for all those years. Mr. Mitchell, I said, looking at the file, you are here today regarding a parking violation outside the VA hospital. The ticket says you were parked in a loading zone for 47 minutes. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, he said. His voice was quiet but steady, clear, the voice of a man who had nothing to hide. Can you tell me what happened that day? Why were you parked there for so long? Mr. Mitchell looked down at his hands for a moment. Then he looked back up at me with these blue eyes that seemed tired, so tired. I was visiting someone, Your Honor, he said simply. At the VA hospital? Yes, sir. And you could not find parking elsewhere? The ticket says there were available spots in the main lot just 100 yards away. I know, Your Honor, I saw those spots. So why did you park in the loading zone, Mr. Mitchell? He took a breath. Because I needed to be close, Your Honor. I needed to be right there at that entrance. I have been doing this job since 1980. I have heard every excuse, every sob story, every creative explanation for why someone broke a rule. But something in the way this old man said those words made me want to hear more. Tell me about who you were visiting, I said. Mr. Mitchell's jaw tightened just for a second. Then he spoke. His name was Sergeant Thomas Brennan, Your Honor. He was 83 years old. He died 4 hours after I visited him that day. The courtroom got quiet. That kind of heavy quiet where even the person in the back row typing on their phone stops and pays attention. I am sorry for your loss, I said. Was Sergeant Brennan a friend of yours? Yes, Your Honor, he was my friend, and that is why you needed to be close to the entrance because you knew he was dying. Yes, Your Honor. Now here is where most people would dismiss the ticket. Call it compassion, move on. But I have learned over 4 decades that the first answer is never the whole answer. There is always more to the story, always another layer, and something about the way Mr. Mitchell was standing there, something about the way his hands gripped that old cane, told me there was a lot more he was not saying. Mr. Mitchell, how did you know Sergeant Brennan? The old man was quiet for a long moment, too long. We served together, Your Honor. In the military? Yes, sir, United States Army. What war? Vietnam, Your Honor. Now you need to understand something. My father was a World War II veteran. I grew up with the deepest respect for the men and women who put on that uniform. So when Mr. Mitchell said Vietnam, everything in me wanted to just tear up that ticket right there. But I could see there was something else, something he was holding back. What years did you serve, Mr. Mitchell? I enlisted in 1967, Your Honor. I was 19 years old. I served until 1970. And Sergeant Brennan was with you during that time. Yes, sir. We were in the same unit, 1st Battalion, 8th Infantry, 4th Infantry Division. The way he said those numbers, that unit designation, You could tell he had said them 1,000 times. They were burned into his memory like a tattoo on his soul. That must have created a strong bond, I said. Yes, Your Honor. And you stayed friends all these years? Mr. Mitchell looked down again. His hands were shaking harder now. No, Your Honor, we did not. No, I had not seen Thomas Brennan in 47 years, Your Honor. Not until August 3, 2023 at 2:15 p.m., when I walked into his room at the VA hospital. Now I was confused. 47 years and he just happened to visit him on the day he died. Before I go any further, I need you to do something for me. I need you to drop a comment right now and tell me what you think is going on here. What secret do you think Mr. Mitchell is hiding? And while you are down there, hit that like button because what I am about to tell you is going to completely change how you see this story. Go ahead, I will wait. Mr. Mitchell, I said, leaning forward, help me understand this. You served with Sergeant Brennan in Vietnam. You were in the same unit. You formed a bond. But then you did not see him for 47 years until the day he died. How did you even know he was dying? I saw his obituary, Your Honor, Mr. Mitchell said quietly. In the Providence Journal, they printed it 3 days early by mistake. It said he was in hospice care at the VA hospital. It said he was expected to pass within the week. And it said something else. What did it say? It said he was a hero, Your Honor. It said he saved 3 men during an ambush on April 14, 1969, near the Cambodian border. It said he pulled those men out of a burning vehicle while under heavy enemy fire. It said he was awarded the Silver Star for his actions that day. I could hear the emotion in Mr. Mitchell's voice now. It was creeping in around the edges, trying to break through that military discipline. That must have made you proud, I said, to read about your friend's heroism. It did, Your Honor. It also made me realize I had to see him. I had to see him one more time before he died. Why, Mr. Mitchell? Why after 47 years? The old man closed his eyes. I watched his chest rise and fall as he took a deep breath. When he opened his eyes again, there were tears forming in the corners. Not falling, just forming, waiting. Because I was one of those 3 men, Your Honor. The courtroom went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. You could have heard someone breathe wrong 3 rows back. Thomas Brennan pulled me out of that burning vehicle on April 14, 1969. He saved my life. He also saved Private First Class Danny Ortiz and Specialist Marcus Webb. We were on a routine patrol. We hit an IED. That is what they call them now. Back then we just called them mines. Homemade mines. The explosion flipped our Jeep. The fuel tank ruptured. Fire everywhere. I was trapped in the back seat. My leg was crushed under the roll bar. I could feel the heat. I could smell my own skin starting to burn. And then I saw Thomas Brennan running toward us, not away toward. The enemy was firing from the treen, bullets hitting the ground all around him, but he kept coming. Mr. Mitchell had to stop. He was breathing hard now, living it all over again. I let him take his time. The whole courtroom waited. He pulled Marcus out first. Marcus was unconscious. Then he came back for Danny. Danny was screaming. His arm was broken. Then Thomas came back for me. The fire was worse by then. The whole Jeep was about to explode. He knew it. I knew it. But he did not leave me there. He grabbed me by my vest and pulled. I was screaming because my leg was still trapped. He pulled harder. The bone broke. I heard it snap, but I came free. He dragged me 30 yards away from that Jeep. 10 seconds later it exploded. 10 seconds, Your Honor. That is how close we were. I sat there listening to this 84-year-old man tell me about the worst day of his life. A day that happened 54 years ago. A day that was still so clear in his mind he could tell me every detail. Thomas Brennan saved my life, Mr. Mitchell said, and I never thanked him. What do you mean you never thanked him? I asked. You were in the same unit. You must have seen him after that. I did, Your Honor. I saw him every day for 3 months until I was medically discharged and sent home. I walked past him in the mess hall. I saw him at formations. I heard other guys thanking him, calling him a hero, buying him drinks. But I never said a word to him, not one word. Why not? Mr. Mitchell's voice got even quieter. I had to strain to hear him because I was ashamed, Your Honor. Ashamed of what? Of being saved. Of needing to be saved. Of being weak. Now, I have been a judge for a long time. I have seen guilt. I have seen shame. I have seen people carry burdens that do not belong to them. But the weight on this old man's shoulders was something different, something deeper. Mr. Mitchell, you were not weak. You were injured. You were trapped. There is no shame in that. I know that now, Your Honor, but I was 19 years old. I was a kid. I thought soldiers were supposed to be tough, invincible. I thought needing help meant you were less of a man. So I avoided Thomas. I could not look him in the eye. And then I got shipped home and I never saw him again. For 47 years I carried that shame. For 47 years I told myself I would reach out, I would find him, I would say thank you, but I never did. I let fear and pride and shame keep me from doing the one thing I should have done the day he pulled me out of that fire. The tears were falling now down this old man's weathered cheeks. He did not wipe them away. He just stood there and let them fall. Now here is the part where this story takes a turn. Here is where you are going to want to stay until the very end, because what Mr. Mitchell told Thomas Brennan in that hospital room is going to absolutely wreck you. But first, I need to know you are really paying attention. Drop a comment and tell me about someone who saved your life. Maybe not literally, maybe they just helped you when you needed it most. Tell me their name. Honor them right now in the comments. When I saw that obituary, Mr. Mitchell continued, when I read about how Thomas Brennan saved 3 men, I knew I had run out of time. I knew I had to see him. I had to tell him thank you. I had to tell him what his actions meant. So I drove to the VA hospital. I parked in that loading zone because my leg still is not right after all these years. It hurts when I walk long distances, and I did not know how much time I had. The obituary said he was dying. So I parked right there at the entrance and I walked into that hospital and I asked for his room number. And you saw him? Yes, Your Honor, room 314. He was in a bed by the window. He was so small. This man who had been so strong, so brave, he looked like he weighed maybe 100 pounds. The cancer had taken everything from him except his eyes. Those were still the same, still sharp, still clear. I walked into that room and I stood at the foot of his bed and I said, Thomas, it is Robert Mitchell from the 1st Battalion from 1969. And he looked at me. He really looked at me and he smiled. Your Honor, after 47 years of silence, after I had abandoned him and never said thank you, he smiled at me. Mr. Mitchell had to stop again. His whole body was shaking now. I walked closer to his bed and I said, Thomas, I came here to tell you something I should have said 54 years ago. Thank you. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for running toward that fire when everyone else would have run away. Thank you for breaking my leg to pull me free. Thank you for those 10 extra seconds that let me live to see my children grow up, to hold my grandchildren, to have this long, beautiful life that I never would have had without you. And you know what he said to me, Your Honor? I shook my head. I could not speak. He said, Robert, I knew you would come. I have been waiting for you. He said he always knew I was struggling with something. He said he could see it in my eyes back in Vietnam, the way I avoided him. He said he understood. He said war does strange things to young men, makes them think wrong things, carry wrong burdens. He said he never held it against me. He said he was just glad I made it home. He said he thought about me often over the years. He said he wondered if I had a good life. Mr. Mitchell pulled a photograph from his jacket pocket. His hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped it. He held it up for me to see. It was faded and creased from being carried around. It showed 2 young men in army uniforms, arms around each other's shoulders, smiling at the camera. They looked so young, so impossibly young. That is me and Thomas, Your Honor, taken in February 1969, 2 months before the ambush. We were both 19 years old. We both thought we were going to change the world. We did not know that war would change us instead. He put the photo back in his pocket, right over his heart. I stayed with Thomas for 47 minutes that day, Your Honor. That is why I got the parking ticket. 47 minutes. 1 minute for every year I waited to say thank you. We talked, we cried, we laughed about the stupid things we did as kids in the jungle. I held his hand, and when the nurse came in and said I needed to let him rest, I leaned down close and I said, Thomas, you are the bravest man I have ever known. You are my hero, and I will make sure everyone knows what you did. He squeezed my hand. He said, I am not a hero, Robert. I just did what anyone would do. But he was wrong, Your Honor. Most people would not run toward the fire. Most people would not risk everything for someone else. Thomas Brennan did, and I got 47 more years of life because of it. Mr. Mitchell looked directly at me now. Thomas died 4 hours after I left the hospital. I got the call that evening. The nurse said he passed peacefully. She said he seemed lighter somehow after my visit, like he had been waiting to hear something and finally did. She said the last thing he said before he went to sleep for the final time was my name. He said, "Robert came. Robert finally came." I could not help it. There were tears in my eyes, too. I looked down at the citation on my desk. $75 for parking in a loading zone. 47 minutes with the man who saved his life. 1 minute for every year of silence. "Your Honor," Mr. Mitchell said quietly, "I will pay the fine. I broke the rule. I parked where I should not have parked. But I need you to understand that those 47 minutes were worth any price. If the fine was $75 or $75,000, I would pay it because I finally got to say the words I should have said in 1969. I finally got to tell my friend, my hero, my savior, thank you." The courtroom was silent except for the sound of people crying. The clerk was crying, the bailiff was crying, the woman in the second row who came in for her own traffic ticket was crying, and I was crying. I looked at that citation one more time. Then I looked at Mr. Mitchell. "Sir, I need to tell you something," I said. "I have been a judge for 43 years. My father was a veteran. He taught me that honor and sacrifice are not just words, they are actions, they are choices. And sometimes they are paid forward across decades, across generations, across the spaces between what we should do and what we actually do." I picked up the citation. "Thomas Brennan saved your life on April 14, 1969. He gave you 54 more years on this earth. He gave your wife a husband. He gave your children a father. He gave your grandchildren someone to love. He gave the world whatever good you have done in those years. And on August 3, 2023, you gave him something back. You gave him peace. You gave him closure. You gave him the knowledge that his sacrifice mattered, that it was seen, that it was remembered." I tore the citation in half. "This parking ticket is dismissed. The fine is vacated. Case number 2023 CV8842 is closed." Mr. Mitchell's legs almost gave out. The bailiff, a former Marine named Carlos Rodriguez, moved quickly to steady him. "But, Your Honor," Mr. Mitchell said, "I broke the rule. I should pay." "You already paid, Mr. Mitchell. You paid with 47 years of guilt you should never have carried. You paid with the weight of shame you did not earn. Consider your account settled." Now, if you are still watching this, you are the kind of person who understands what real justice looks like. You are part of a community that believes in honor, in sacrifice, in doing what is right even when it is hard. So do me a favor, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe because we need more stories like this in the world. But that is not where this story ends, not even close. Because what happened after I dismissed that ticket showed me something about the power of witness, about the importance of telling the stories of our heroes. Mr. Mitchell stood there for a moment, supported by bailiff Rodriguez. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He saluted me, a perfect military salute, held steady despite his shaking hands. "Thank you, Your Honor," he said. "Thank you for understanding." I stood up from my bench, which is something I almost never do, and I returned his salute. Because in that moment I was not honoring him, I was honoring Thomas Brennan. I was honoring every person who runs toward the fire when everyone else runs away. Mr. Mitchell turned to leave, moving slowly with his cane. But before he reached the door, I called out to him, "Mr. Mitchell, wait, please." He turned back, confused. "You told Thomas Brennan that you would make sure everyone knows his story. Were you serious about that?" "Yes, Your Honor, absolutely." "Then I have an idea." Over the next 3 weeks, I worked with Mr. Mitchell to do something I had never done before. We contacted the local news stations. We reached out to the Veterans Affairs Office. We got in touch with Thomas Brennan's family, including his daughter Lisa, who was 52 years old and had heard her father's war stories, but never knew the names of the men he saved. On September 15, 2023, the City of Providence held a ceremony at the Veterans Affairs Medical Center. They unveiled a plaque in the main entrance, right next to where Mr. Mitchell had parked on that August day. The plaque read, "In memory of Sergeant Thomas Brennan, United States Army, 1947, 2023. Silver Star recipient, hero of April 14, 1969. He ran toward the fire so others could live." The ceremony was attended by over 200 people, veterans from every branch of service, active duty military, families of fallen soldiers. I was asked to speak at the ceremony. I told the story of the parking ticket. I told the story of the 47 minutes. I told the story of the 47 years. If you are still with me, then you understand that this is not just a story about a parking ticket. This is a story about redemption, about courage, about the weight we carry and the peace we can find when we finally let it go. So, I need you to do something right now. Think about someone in your life who deserves to hear thank you, someone who helped you, someone who saved you in some way. And I need you to promise me you will not wait 47 years. Do it today. Drop a comment and tell me who you are going to thank. Mr. Mitchell spoke at the ceremony too. He stood at that podium, hands shaking, voice breaking, and he read a letter he had written to Thomas Brennan. In that letter, he apologized for the 47 years of silence. He thanked Thomas for his courage, and he made a promise. I promise to live the rest of my life in a way that honors your sacrifice, he read. I promise to be brave when I want to be afraid. I promise to help others when it would be easier to walk away. I promise to tell your story to anyone who will listen because heroes deserve recognition. They deserve gratitude, and I will spend whatever time I have left making sure you get what you deserve. By the time he finished reading, there was not a dry eye in that crowd. Thomas Brennan's daughter Lisa walked up to Mr. Mitchell and hugged him. She said her father had talked about the ambush many times over the years, but always deflected praise. She said it meant everything to finally understand the full impact of what he did. She said Mr. Mitchell had given her the knowledge that her father died at peace. The ceremony ended with a 21-gun salute, 7 rifles, 3 volleys, 21 shots echoing across the parking lot where Mr. Mitchell had received his citation 43 days earlier. After the ceremony, Mr. Mitchell came up to me. He shook my hand with both of his hands. Judge Caprio, I need to thank you. You could have just dismissed the ticket quietly, but you helped me turn my shame into something beautiful. You helped me honor Thomas the way he deserved. Mr. Mitchell, I did not do anything. You did. You carried a burden for 47 years and then you finally put it down. That took more courage than most people will ever show. I just wish I had done it sooner, he said quietly. I understand that feeling, I told him. But here is what I have learned in my 43 years on this bench. It is never too late to do the right thing. It is never too late to say thank you. It is never too late to honor the people who deserve honor. Mr. Mitchell nodded. Then he said something I will never forget. Thomas told me something in that hospital room. He said he was not afraid to die because he knew he had lived a good life. He said he had done one thing that really mattered. I asked him what that one thing was. He said saving those 3 men. He said every morning when he woke up he knew that somewhere 3 men were waking up too because of him. He said that knowledge made everything worth it. Mr. Mitchell looked at me with those tired blue eyes. I want that, Your Honor. I want to do one thing that really matters. So I've decided that I am going to spend whatever time I have left visiting veterans in hospitals and nursing homes. I'm going to listen to their stories. I'm going to thank them for their service. I'm going to make sure they know they are not forgotten. And he has kept that promise. Over the last several months, Robert Mitchell has visited over 50 veterans in care facilities across Rhode Island. He brings that old photograph of him and Thomas Brennan. He tells the story, and he listens. That is what I have learned from this case. I have learned that justice is not always about rules and fines and punishments. Sometimes justice is about understanding. It is about grace. It is about recognizing that behind every violation, there is a human being with a story. And sometimes that story changes everything. I have been doing this job for a very long time. I have dismissed thousands of tickets, but I will never forget Robert Mitchell. I will never forget his 47-minute visit with Thomas Brennan. I will never forget the weight of 47 years of shame that he carried and finally put down. And I will never forget that sometimes the most important thing we can do is to listen, really listen. Because when we do, we might discover that what looks like a simple parking violation is actually a story about heroism, sacrifice, redemption, and love. Thomas Brennan died on August 3, 2023. But his story did not die with him because one man had the courage to park in a loading zone, walk into a hospital room, and say the words he should have said 54 years earlier. Thank you. And those 2 words spoken 47 years late changed everything. Thank you for watching this story. If this touched you, if it made you think about someone you need to thank, do not wait. Do not carry that weight for 47 years. Do it today. Say the words, make the call, because life is short and time is precious, and the people who save us deserve to know it. Subscribe to this channel if you believe in stories that matter. Stay tuned, because next time I have a story about a single mother who came into my courtroom, and what she did next will restore your faith in humanity. Until then, remember that justice is not always blind. Sometimes justice sees everything. Sometimes justice sees the truth, and sometimes justice knows when to put down the gavel and pick up the grace.